Hello and welcome to the Fit News Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Shaver. Now, listen, if you are feeling stuck, frustrated with your health journey, or ready to break free from the endless cycle of starting and stopping diets, I've got something just for you. It's the 14-day Rapid Reboot Challenge, and it is designed to help reset your habits, build strength, and boost your energy fast. If you're ready to feel confident and strong again without restrictive diets or complicated workouts, this challenge is exactly what you need, and it's only 14 days, and you'll get daily expert tips, a simple plan, including a Strong for Life workout that can be done in as little as 15 minutes at home or at the gym, along with some daily motivation to keep you going. Are you ready for it? Head on over to workwithjenshaver.com or click the link in the show notes today to get started. Stop wishing, start doing. And now, on to today's episode, and joining me today is Vicky Midwood. She is a health coach and addiction eliminator, is passionate about helping business owners over 40 liberate themselves from compulsive eating, alcohol dependence, overexercise, weight obsession, and anxiety so that they can finally live the life they want in a body that looks and feels good. She is a certified integrative health and nutrition coach, author, and podcaster, and has been in the world of fitness and well-being for over 30 years, working with disordered eating, addictions, anxiety, and alcohol issues since 2012, when she created her very own method and programs to release people from prison of harmful addictive thoughts and habits and achieve infinite freedom. Vicky, welcome to the Fit News Podcast today. So excited to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. I'm so excited to be here. I'm just loving what you're doing and how you're helping people. It's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, we are on a mission to help people over 40 together.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
that magical number.
Right? Yeah. Well, so much, so much happens, right?
Yeah.
Around that transitional time, if you will, right? There's so much going on
Yeah.
in women's lives during that time. So it is a time that, if we can provide some support to them, it's a great time
Especially
to do it.
because there is so much confusing and conflicting information out there. And it's so important that they listen to people who, A, they trust, B,
Mm-hmm.
they like, but who are actually walking the talk.
Right.
Because there's no better way of going, well, is this going to work if they can see that somebody is living it, eating it, sleeping it, breathing it, as well as talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Proof is in the pudding, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that the fact that you're keeping the workouts short but doable
Mm-hmm.
is so important, because as you say, especially at that age, there's still a lot going on. Well, a lot of people at that age are kind of in the middle of that sandwich, aren't they? They've got parents that they're still taking care of, but
Mm-hmm.
potentially they've got children as well, and probably a career.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot going on.
A lot going on. Yes. Yeah. Well, let's get started with how did you, begin your journey into helping women
Honestly,
over
my
40?
journey into fitness was literally by accident. It wasn't something I chose. It kind of chose me. I had issues with disordered eating, and which both really kind of morphed into bulimia when I was quite young, about 11.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would binge on foods and then get rid of them and exercise like a demon. And I just felt that I couldn't stick to a diet. And that's really how I started on that trajectory. So I continued on that path for a number of years, went quite serious at one point where I was very, very thin and threatened with hospitalization, and decided that nobody was going to force feed me, but I didn't know how to eat. I had no clue by that point. When I was full, when I was empty, I'd completely lost touch with my diet. And so I went the other way and ended up overeating and becoming overweight, which I hated. So then I reverted back to what I knew worked, which obviously not healthy, back to the bulimia. And it was in that period that I met my first husband, who gifted me a gym membership for a week. And I'd never been a member of a gym. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use this. So I went every day, tried to do as many different classes as possible, and got chatting to the lady who seemed to be the only instructor there who was doing all the classes.
Oh, wow.
And I just said, we just got talking because she said to me, "You move very well. Are you a dancer?" And I kind of laughed because I left doing ballet when I was 11 because I felt too fat.
Oh,
I was the ginger-haired, freckly, chubby one with the belly that stuck out amongst all these beautiful brunette and blondes with their hair pristine. And there was me, naturally curly, just like stuck out like a sore thumb. So I left, and I didn't really participate since then. So to get that compliment was really nice. And I just
yeah.
said to her, "How do you get to do what you do?" So that's really how it started.
Wow.
Just literally by fluke. So I ended up doing a short, intense training, which really now would be classed as a personal training course, but that term didn't actually exist back in 1990, which is when I qualified. And I walked out of that qualification straight into a full-time job in a ladies only gym, which back then was way ahead of its time.
Right.
So I
Oh, for
literally was
sure.
thrown in at the deep end. And what better way of me hiding my exercise addiction and my food issues by talking about it and nobody noticing what I was doing, but just advising others. So that's really how I came into the world. And funnily enough, talking about women over 40. So one of the very first personal training clients I had was a lady in her 40s who was struggling to follow the advice that we've been taught on our course, which back then was the old food pyramid of loads of grains and carbohydrates. And I was struggling to understand what was going on for her.
Yeah.
So that really ignited within the first 2 months of me getting into the fitness world, my understanding that just because you've done a training course doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And I had to go to the library, proper books, because we had no internet,
Right.
and start finding out about menopause. And I can tell you, it was a struggle
Yeah, for
because
sure. Because back then there was,
there was hardly anything
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And much of it was very derogatory, the little that I could find. So it really was kind of, I felt like it was a bit like the blind leading the blind, because she didn't know what was going on because it's not talked about. Her mum hadn't spoken to her about it. Her grandmother hadn't. So it was just this like, what's happening to my body? Nobody knew. So that was kind of my foray into the world of fitness and health. And I added in a little bit of an extra addiction, which was alcohol, just for fun as well.
I mean, why not?
Well, why not? Because I'd gotten to that point where throwing up when you're bulimic is not great, damages your teeth, wreaks havoc with your whole throat. And obviously when you're an instructor, you've got to talk a lot.
Right.
And so my crazy logic at the time was, I know if I drink alcohol, I'll still get the energy to be able to work out and exercise, but I don't actually have to eat food. So that is kind of what I did. So I literally lived on cigarettes, coffee, and alcohol for I don't know how long. And of course, the crazy cardio was because it was cardio everything.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
And that was how my body functioned for, well, right up into my 30s. So yeah, craziness.
Yeah.
And really that whole time I was still learning and really trying to understand, why couldn't I fix myself?
Yeah.
What was it about certain foods that other people could stop eating and I couldn't?
Mm-hmm.
Why was it very straightforward for them to know when they'd had enough and just walk away, no matter what the food was? Whereas I was always eating to the point of bursting before I knew when to stop, or I was trying to avoid altogether. Mm-hmm. And I was told that it was a mental illness. And I did end up going to therapy. Through my story, I got so fed up of the stress of food and hiding it and lying to people that there was a couple of attempts of suicide, which landed me in front of therapists. And I was hearing the same thing. Eating disorders are a mental health issue. Mm-hmm. I was convinced back then that it was not just mental. And of course, we didn't know then about the gut-brain connection, and we didn't understand about hormones, and we certainly weren't talking about the vagus nerve or neuroplasticity or genetic SNPs or anything like that. Yeah. And so there was a lot going on that obviously the supposed specialists didn't know, and of course I didn't know, until I wound up in rehab for alcohol addiction. And that is the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me the space and the kind of energetic ability to just focus on myself. I was a single mom by this point. I'd been married and divorced twice. I'd had to be made bankrupt, and then I'd gotten into another relationship that was going nowhere. So I'm happy to say I am very happily single. After 4 failed relationships, I'm like, I just don't think I'm very good at that. I think I'll just leave it. But I ended up in rehab. And when I came out, that's when I recognized that this was something that fascinated me, because whilst I was in South Africa in the second rehab, I got chatting to a guy who was an incredible therapist. And I got talking to him about what I thought was something to do with how my body was digesting or not digesting or handling food. And he's the one who said to me, wow, that's interesting. Why don't you pursue it and find out? And he explained to me that addiction was nothing to do with willpower. And just he started talking to me about brain. And because he knew I was interested, he was helping me to really find out more. And that ignited the spark in me to really understand just exactly what does go on in the body and the brain. And through that desire to learn, it allowed me to reconnect properly, or probably, I'm saying properly, but for the first time ever, to my own body, and to actually understand it. And that's when I realized that, as girls, we're not, well, I certainly wasn't taught about periods and what was normal actually is common, but it wasn't normal, the symptoms that I was getting. The horrible PMS, PMT symptoms. Oh, it's normal. You get really tender breasts and you feel terrible and you get pain, and no, it might be common, but it's not normal. It shouldn't be like that. So it was a massive learning curve. And to be honest, I've never stopped learning since, but because there was nobody who could fill in all of the gaps for me to help me to put the pieces together, I had to do it for myself. Because stress came in. I was a single mom. When I came out of rehab, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in the fitness world. I wasn't working by that point. I had actually been asked to leave the last job that I had in a gym because of my drinking. So that was a big catalyst. And so financially, there was stress. I went back to college to decide to become a teacher. So for the very first time, I got a degree at 35. And the stress, not realizing, but obviously stress is massive. And recognizing that started to push me back into familiar thoughts, familiar behavior patterns around the food. And so this is where, really since my 30s, I've just gone really deep into understanding the food, the mind, the nervous system, the hormonal collection, and really helping women to do the same, because we don't understand the power of bacteria, for example, in the gut, and how much that can drive us. No matter how good your intentions are, and how strong you think your willpower is, you ain't going to beat your body, you ain't going to beat bacteria. If it wants feeding, it's going to shout at you and it's going to yell at you until it gets what it wants. And understanding that you can change your microbiome, and it's not just the microbiome in your gut, it's in your mouth, it's in your vagina, it's in everything that when we think about microbiome, it's great, people have heard of it, but they go straight to gut. But before you get to your gut, you've got to get to your mouth. So you've got to understand oral hygiene and that kind of stuff, and how your cycle works, because every woman's cycle is not textbook. It's unique to them. And when you know how to eat and how best to serve your body in the different phases of your cycle, the chances are then you learn to understand what other signals are, because you're just more tuned in. And so my passion is really to help people make friends with their body instead of falling out with it and thinking it's letting them down or somehow being horrible to them.
Right.
We need to start loving it, cherishing it, and treating it well by doing the things that will help it to function better.
Right. Because I think if we would just create a better relationship, which involves, number one, talking better to ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then also listening, our body's going to tell us what it needs, right? And like you said, if the microbiome is off, right, it's going to send signals like, I want more
usually it's going to
carbs,
be
right? Chips and all
usually
of
the
those
carbs.
things.
Yeah. The
Right.
sugar, the carbs, the salty, the sweet. It is going to be
Right.
those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, it has nothing to do with willpower. And I think that's the part that I really want women to take home from this is it's not that you're weak. It's not that you don't have any willpower. It's not, that's not the issue.
Not it. No, it really isn't. And I think we can't say it enough because, we're taught if you're going to restrict, we are human beings. And by nature, if you restrict a human being from something and you deny it and you say, no, you cannot have, we are going to want that thing more.
Right.
Because we're told you can't have it. Now, if somebody says to you, it's in abundance, you can have as much as you like when you like, we're kind of not that fussed about it. But when we suddenly give something power in that it's a special occasion and you can only have it now and again and you've got to restrict it even though you want it, we're now making this thing huge. We're amplifying it. And, cake is no different to carrots in that it's food. It's something that we eat.
Right.
But of course it's different because we've got massive associations with cake because it symbolizes what? Celebration, happy times, community, reward, those kinds of things. Carrots kind of don't have that.
Right.
Even though, of course, nutritionally, they're very different as well. But the associations that we have with the foods is the thing that makes us feel even more hard done to if we're trying to restrict them. And this is where, when you realize that we all have associations, and some of them we didn't actually make for ourselves. We were kind of given them as kids.
Right.
If as parents, for example, we were rewarded for good behavior with food, what have we learned? Food is a reward. So when we're an adult, we reward ourselves with food because it's been ingrained. And so then when we try and resist rewarding ourselves with the thing that we've always rewarded ourselves with, we then think, well, I shouldn't reward myself, but I want to reward. And now I feel hard done to. So now blow it. I'm just going to eat the whole cake.
Right.
And this is where you realize all of that has nothing to do with willpower.
Right.
And everything to do with associations, perceptions, the situation that we're finding ourselves in. And this is where food isn't just about hunger. And we think it is. And I hate the term food's just fuel, but it isn't.
No.
Is it? It really isn't. We come together no matter what race, no matter what religion, no matter what age, we all come together in a community around food.
Right.
It's massively important. It's nourishing body, mind, and soul. And so helping your body to realize if we are consistently eating certain foods, we're just going to, by default, increase the bacteria in our system that likes those foods. And so when those bacteria proliferate, which they do, because that's what bacteria do, there's just going to be more of them. So they're going to be shouting louder when you try and starve them. And so this is where, instead of going, well, I'm just going to keep starving you can keep shouting, we've got to flip it and think about, let's try and increase the other bacteria. Let's eat more of the stuff that is good for us so that now if we're eating more food, we're not so focused on depriving ourselves and resisting. We're more interested in, I call it crowding out the crap.
Yeah, right.
And that way, you actually don't have the space to eat very much of the stuff that you think you actually want. And it gives you that opportunity to ask yourself, do I actually want it? Mm-hmm. Or is it just the thought of it and the association that I have with it that is really the thing that's driving me? When we can look at food like that, mm-hmm. that's when we start to feel more in control of it.
Right.
Rather than the other way around.
Right. That's when we have control over the situation rather than the food being in control of the situation.
Yeah. And when we think about, when we talk about our body lets us know what we want, well, it does. Mm-hmm. But the problem is most of us don't know how to interpret what it's telling us.
Right.
And that's where it gets tricky. If you think about, again, it goes back to when we're little usually. And oftentimes, let's say something simple, we've all been through this. And if you've got kids, you might be going through it already now. But at some point, they will say, oh, I've got tummy ache. Now, there's two schools of thought around this. So you have a parent who will say, well, you ate too much. Don't worry about it. Right? It'll go off. Okay. Or maybe you were running around. It's probably just a stitch. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or you may have a parent who then starts to go, oh my goodness, where is it? Let me find out what's going on for you. And they start to bring in fear and worry about this sensation of a tummy ache. Yeah. Whichever way that goes in. And if we're taught that a signal is bad and scary, we're either going to feel anxious all of the time and then not realizing it, start to turn to foods that will help to quash that anxiety, which tend to be the foods that are high in dopamine, high in carbohydrates, because they literally do help you to calm down and relax. Think creamy, smooth, sweet foods, your usual comfort foods, things like mashed potato and gravy and all that. So it doesn't take much chewing, right? So we're going to turn to those foods if we're very, very anxious. If you're somebody who was taught to ignore a pain, well, how are you learning to know what your body's telling you? Because you've just been programmed to not listen to a thing it's saying to you. Just ignore it.
Right.
Yeah. And so we don't really know what our body is telling us. And this is where, for the majority of people I work with, because they really are so disconnected, they just haven't got a clue. I just teach them simple muscle testing to learn to ask their body, what does it want? And sometimes if we can just go into the body and start to ask, where am I feeling this? Have I got tightness? Am I feeling it around my throat? Is it in my shoulders? Am I feeling something in my chest? Is it in my tummy? Could I be anxious? Could I be angry? Could I be avoiding something? Is it because I'm feeling lonely or bored? Is it because I just need to feel worthy, wanted, loved, safe, secure? Could be any of those things. Or it could be something physical. Am I thirsty? Am I dehydrated? Am I tired? And do I need to have a nap? And often as women, we're pretty good at ignoring that one, aren't we?
Right.
Yeah. But if you're tired and you don't give in, then the body is going to send out neurotransmitters and hormones that say, hey, go eat something high in sugar and let's just keep this energy rocking, because you're obviously not going to give me what I want. So I'm going to make you give me something that's going to force me to keep on going, even though I don't want to. And this is where we realize that we're so out of kilter with our body's signals that we need to just give ourselves some space and allow ourselves to ask ourselves, what is going on? What am I feeling? What am I thinking about? Am I worried about something? Is it actually food that I want? And often this is where just taking that space to ask is all we need sometimes to be able to make a different choice. But the muscle testing technique for women, particularly when they are so disconnected, is a really fast one and a really simple one to teach. And you can either do it just like that, Yeah, or you can do it where your body actually, your whole body sways. Are you familiar with muscle testing?
No.
Okay, so you can kind of Google videos on YouTube for muscle testing, but there's various different ways. Some people do this one. I'm not a fan of this one where you might have seen it where you pull your fingers apart, or you might have seen the one where people hold their arm down and it looks like somebody's pushing or resisting. But it works on the premise that our body knows what it needs much more quickly and much more definitely than this. This takes over and confuses everything.
Right.
But this one is a really simple way, and it's always yes and no questions.
So it's just rubbing the
So if you just literally rub your index finger against your thumb, it should be fairly smooth. You can do it with me, and if people are watching this, they can try. So if you just do it fairly gently, and it should move, it should feel fairly smooth. Yeah. Now, if you say something that is true, that's say a yes answer. So if I say, my name is Vicky, nothing happens. It still feels smooth. Yeah. Now, if I say something that's a lie, that's a no, I'm going to go, my name is Jen. It kind of feels sticky. Now, I'm not forcing that. And this is where you try it. Because if you do it and you just say, my name is Jen, it should just feel exactly the same.
Yeah, my name is Jen. And
right, now say, my name is Vicky.
My name is Vicky. Yeah.
Okay, now you didn't do anything, but so you can do this with simple things like, let's say you got a bottle of water. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? I don't know. Hold your bottle of water, right? And you just say, do I need water? Okay, so mine's gone sticky. So the answer is no. I'm fully hydrated. I don't need it. Yeah. But this is where if we're having this, what I call ping pong game in our heads, like table tennis, shall I eat the chocolate? Shall I not eat the chocolate? I don't know whether to, or shall I just wait? If you ask a question that is simply, do you, talking to your body, do you want chocolate? And if you do that, you will get a definitive yes or no. And this is where it kind of takes away the pressure of you going, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And if I have it, I'm going to feel terrible. And then if I eat one piece, I'm never going to stop. And you just ask your body, what does it want? When you start to do that, it starts to bring in a very small level of trust. Because when you get the answer and you follow through with the action and you go, oh, I'm okay. Actually, this is all right. I feel all right. Maybe I can start to trust this weird muscle testing thing. Maybe I can start to actually trust that my body does know what it needs.
Right.
And that's a simple way of you then starting to be able to decipher those signals that your body is giving you. And anybody can do it. Kids can do it. Women, men, older people, anybody. As long as you can do that, you can do it. I like to do the whole body sway. It's a simple premise. It's exactly the same idea, but your body will move forward for a yes, or it will move backwards for a no. Except tends to be, some people it's the other way around. Some people sway backwards for a yes and forwards for a no. But in general, tends to be forwards for a yes. And this is where, when you really feel your body is answering the question, it almost kind of lets you off the hook, because it's that unknowing, it's that indecisiveness, it's that procrastination, it's that playing the story through and working yourself up that can often lead us to doing something that we really don't want to do, but we feel compelled to. So that's really one of the things that, and this is the nice thing about exercise as well, because if you're doing daily exercise and you're having this, oh, I don't know what I should do today. Do I do weights? Should I go for a walk? Shall I do yoga? You just literally ask, do you want to do yoga? Be a yes or a no. Do you want to go for a walk? Yes or no. Do you want to do a weights workout? Yes or no. And then all of a sudden you have your answer. And then you're off. Instead of going, oh, I did that yoga, but oh, maybe I should have done the weights. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I've not done enough. Because we do, don't we?
Yeah. It's just helping with self-awareness. And then once you are aware, now you can dive a little deeper, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can then start to do it with food if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't have to be. Even decisions like, should I go out tonight with my friends?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're like, oh my God. Yeah, because all of that stuff, when we don't know, we're creating a stress response.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we've got to help our ladies, particularly, to understand that when our cortisol and our adrenaline go up, we have literally a kind of opposite response with our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone hormones, as long as we know that that's also affecting dopamine, serotonin, DHA as well. So the more you are stressed, the more your other hormones are going to get out of kilter. Mm-hmm. And when we're dropping these hormones, there is going to be a signal to your brain that says, hey, I'm getting out of balance here. Give me something quick that's going to give me a boost, that's going to give me a lift. Guess what that is? It's not going to be broccoli, is it?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
And this is your body's way of saying to you, I'm out of balance.
Right. And you can't fight nature.
Right.
And so that's where it goes back to, this isn't the willpower. You cannot fight nature.
Right. And so whether it's bacteria, or whether it's hormones, or whether it's neurotransmitters, all of them are chatting together. Right. In your brain and in your body. They're not just in your brain and they're not just in your body. It's all of them. It's like an orchestra. Everything works. It's all intertwined and all interconnected. And unfortunately, we've been taught to separate mental health from physical health. And you know, a lot of the ladies I work with, particularly the ones who have body image issues and food addiction issues, are so disconnected from their head and their body. They talk about their body as being it, like it's a completely separate part to them. Yeah. And it's not. And this is where just reconnecting and recognizing that what we say to ourselves in our heads, as well as what we're thinking around other people and how they're going to respond to us, all of that is going to affect our stress response, our insulin levels. And as we get older and into menopause, we then got to recognize that, you know, our insulin sensitivity is going to decrease. Yeah. It is because those other hormones are decreasing. And so when we understand that that is going to happen, it's even more important that we know how to treat ourselves with compassion, talk to ourselves nice, do the right sort of exercise, get enough sleep, all of those things. And I know they're not like massively sexy and exciting, right? But they work.
You know, I think that's just it. A lot of it is simple, but not easy, right?
Correct.
But it is simple.
It is. And often that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're looking for something that should be kind of more complicated. Yeah. And am I doing enough? That's often what it can't just be this, surely. No, absolutely it is. And I have a saying, and I think you're similar, that less is more.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's the quality of what we're doing and making sure that what we're doing suits our body and our mind and our circumstances that's important. It's not how much of it.
Right.
Yeah. And that, I think that is the biggest message as well, because the more as ladies we can be in our sympathetic nervous system, the more stressed we are, the more we're likely to feel out of control of everything. And if we can get into our parasympathetic, that rest and digest part of our nervous system more frequently, then we're just by default going to be nicer to be around. But also we're going to have more joy and more fun, because we're just going to be that more chilled out when we go, actually, it doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be complicated. I just have to stay consistent. That's the key.
Right. And that's I think where a lot of people struggle, is the whole consistency thing, because they think, well, I couldn't do a 1 hour workout, so I might as well not do any workout.
Right.
And now we're not consistent, right? Because once I don't do it today, well, tomorrow looks just as busy. So looks like I'm not gonna be able to do it tomorrow either. And you know, it's just quicker to grab this fast food meal. So I might as well do it today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and before you know it.
Yeah. And this is how we create habits, and we don't do them intentionally to sabotage ourselves.
Right.
We just do them because we believe our own excuses and our own reasons, because in our heads, it's faster and it's easier. But this is where allowing ourselves a little bit of space and time. And I know it's very easy for all of us to say, well, I just don't have the space and the time. But I am going to always, with my clients, for sure, I'm going to question them on that. Yeah. Because you're telling me you've got time to watch Netflix.
Yep.
All right. You've got time to take a little bit of space to just get conscious of what am I actually doing with my time?
Yeah.
Because when you're really conscious about it, you'll see that you do have more time than you think.
Oh, for sure.
And when people sit down and do it, right. And this is where it's what are you prioritizing? That's what we need to look at.
Yeah.
And if you think, I mean, I don't know about you, where you are, but when you have like a takeaway and you've got to wait for it to be delivered, well, chances are that takes as long as if you were going to cook a meal yourself from scratch. Right? So it's just like, and what are you doing with that time when you're waiting for it?
Yeah.
So, and so this is where we kind of go, marketing's excellent.
Yeah.
But actually it's lying to us. It's convincing us that this is going to save you time when actually you're not saving any time at all, because the time it takes for it to arrive, you could have made it.
Right.
And you're probably going to do nothing with that time unless you decide that is your workout time. Yeah. In which case you have got time for a workout.
Oh, Vicky, this was great. If my listeners want to find more information about you and your programs, where can they find you and information about you?
Thank you. Yes. So I would suggest the best place to start is to go to my website, which is just vickymidwood.com. And if you kind of are wondering if you have got any issues around food or alcohol, maybe you're kind of a little bit concerned, there's a really quick quiz that I've got right at the top of the website that you might want to do. Okay. You can also find me on social media. I am just Vicky Midwood on social media, on all of them, all platforms. Okay. Nice. And if you go to Spotify or YouTube, you can put in my podcast, which is Raw Chatter, and you can find out more about me on there.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Vicky, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And to your listeners, I hope that you do have the rest of a great day, and do start listening to your body, because it is designed to work with you. It doesn't dislike you. It wants you to feel good.
Exactly. Well, thank you for listening to the Fit News podcast, and we will catch you next time.